Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it.
Dan Gates, welcome to the show. Dan is on the front lines of wildlife policy in Colorado. He is inside CPW commission meetings and legislative rooms where decisions are made long before the public hears it. He's the founder of Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, and his work is focused on one core principle, the North American model of wildlife conservation. Wildlife conservation must be driven by science and real-world outcomes, not slogans or emotion. What makes this conversation urgent is the pattern. The tightening restriction on hunters, trappers, and wildlife tools that follow the same incremental playbook we're seeing with gun laws in Colorado. Quiet, procedural, and easy to miss until it's too late. Dan understands how conservation actually works, who funds it, and what breaks when ideology replaces expertise. If you care about wildlife, rural communities, or how rights are lost step by step, this is a conversation you need to hear.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
I feel like you've been the show for a while now, and
that's scary as hell.
We're definitely glad to be on this road. We appreciate everything you've been able to guide us through and keep us in the right path and understanding like what's coming. It's huge.
And that's humbling because we've struck a relationship up well before we had to. Mm-hmm. And then when we had to, it made it a lot easier to be able to do it. Mm. And I just, appreciate your guys' generosity and the strategic caring that you have to make sure that things are done in a manner that we're trying to do what's right for what we believe to be the cause. Right. And it just so happens that the cross-pollination of wildlife and sporting arms and agriculture and hunting and fishing and trapping and conservation, it's not that far apart.
We're very connected.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. And all of it's under attack and assault in some capacity. Absolutely. So I appreciate, you guys invite me back. I appreciate your friendship, appreciate your professional business relationship. But it's cool to be able to say that we're part, and I've said this through podcasts and different practices that we've engaged in. I believe this is a movement. Mm-hmm. Might be slow, might not be as fast and broad as what we want, but it's a movement.
As I always say, I'm the mule. I'm not pretty. I'm not fast, but I'll get there.
You might be the mule. I'm the ass.
On the Mountainside podcast you just did, you mentioned, and I know you mentioned it before, you brought up the comment that food is political. And that coming from the particular individual being the governor's husband, you can't make food is inherently not political unless government is involved.
Yes.
And it's that comment that you had that conversation really made me start thinking like that's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. When they start restricting our ability to be self-reliant and become reliant on a system, whether the government assistance on a federal level or on a state level, they start controlling you more and more.
Exactly. Yeah, and when I did that particular podcast, we took sound bites from a podcast that the first gentleman was on. Mm-hmm. And some people thought that I had him in the room the way it sounded when they were listening to it. Right. I mean, because Sean did a great job at editing. But that conversation kind of alluded to the beliefs and the ideologies of specific groups and specific users that they just have a different philosophy. And I'm not afraid to call it out, but as I said in the Bobby Marshall Mountainside podcast, these people that we're, neck and neck with or button heads with or whatever, it's not that they're any less passionate about what they believe in. We have different practices and different ideologies about how to get somewhere, but perspectives and opinions are far different than facts and science.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I really enjoy about a lot of the conversations that you have or have put out there is that it always comes back to science. It always comes back to data. It always comes back to this is the hard fact. If the hard fact or the data or the science says we shouldn't do this, then we shouldn't do it. And I'm right there. I'm right there. I think that's a big thing. You know, a conversation I had with one of our local wardens was talking about 2027 and the adoption of e-tagging and how that will drive the science better.
Yep.
The interesting conversation that they're having in Utah right now about how many callers they have, how much that data is going to drive certain wildlife management practices is huge, right?
Yeah.
Because they have, I can't remember the number, but there wasn't, it's astronomical the amount of money they have invested into callers. It's, no pun intended, trumps every other state by like a significant amount.
It's monumental.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the money that just continually grows and what they put back in to study and manage the resource that nobody else is putting money into besides the conservation community. It's the licenses that turn around and fund that. Who does so much proactive and preemptive, preventative measuring besides scientists? And they're not trying to stop anything. They're just trying to find out, hey, can we do this or should we do more? How do we make it better?
Right.
There's not anybody that does that.
That's like Howl.
Howl for Wildlife.
Howl for Wildlife, putting out the funding or putting up the funding that's saying that they would do the drone program on Catalina Island to get a proper count of deer.
Yeah.
Instead of
driving around with spotlights.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because I imagine you know.
I think they call that jacklighting.
Effective, but
Yeah.
When is that when is that technique taken from? Like, when did they use that technique? How long ago would you say?
As far as the spotlighting?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that was done in the last 10 years.
Really?
And maybe even sooner than that.
But when was that technique adopted by, let's say, wildlife managers? Is this like a 1980s technique that they used to do this?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think some specific areas, especially smaller confined areas, and I could use like the United States Air Force Academy out in Colorado Springs, or Fort Carson, or Pinyon Canyon, because I've hunted all of those, and know what some of that background legwork took for what they considered to be science, because it's not like it was in a high fence, but it was a contained area that they could turn around and say, okay, from here to here, this is what we have and this is what we're going to do. Catalina Island, I think, is one of those examples. Maybe like White Sands Missile Range or something that you can control so many things with Catalina, and I don't know it specifically in the terms like what Charles does, but I know that. Like you couldn't camp and you couldn't do this, and I'm not sure about the agriculture production and what they do. There's parameters and variables that go into the science side of it that it almost becomes a controlled environment, just like the ones that I mentioned, where you had military training on Fort Carson, but the deer and elk became very adaptable to that. But nobody really camped downrange. Nobody ran four-wheelers downrange. They didn't have cattle downrange. You couldn't be down there after dark downrange. I mean, there's some things that it gave you a different feeling. And I think the thing that I found out about Fort Carson as an example is that it was almost comparable to what I heard from military guys that went into Afghanistan and Pakistan to work in the military. They saw wildlife just like, bombs going off over here, and they just got used to it. I think Catalina Island is something that you could probably turn around and reference, that whatever those animals became adapted to, that just was everyday normal life.
Sorry, I really sidebarred that.
I think it's relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, in all
It talks about the
aspects of
science.
it. Yeah. You know, us getting away from, you know, pushing a ballot initiative, you know, to remove wolves, you know, or to stop wolves is like, no, let's look at the science. Let's look at the science for all of these factors. And how many scientists?
350 scientists in Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Yeah.
1,100 employees that are full-time, roughly 1,100 part-time employees.
Who pays for that?
Outside of the park system, it's hunting and fishing dollars.
Yeah.
The state park side funds the majority of the park side, and then they get grants and money from GOCO and other places and so forth. But people need to understand, and there again, we could get down 1,000 rabbit holes on this.
Yeah.
But people understand what they understand. And when the merge happened roughly 13, 14 years ago, they didn't do that to get parks out. They can't commingle the funds.
Right.
There's federal audits that go in with Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson that aren't part of the normal knowledge of what people compare. They did this to get them out of a hole.
Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to look right at that camera
Okay.
and say that is no longer an argument.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, when you look at the commingling, cross-pollination of funds between Colorado Parks and Colorado Division of Wildlife, now became Colorado Parks and Wildlife, that money is not shared from one account to another. There's no way, shape, or form legally that they could do that. And because of the Pittman Robertson and Dingle Johnson funds, the federal excise taxes, that money is accountable through the federal government. And if you turn around and commingle that and you break that barrier, you're susceptible to lose all funding on that.
Yeah.
And so what I want to say is that before a firearm shows up here at this shop to be commercially sold, there is already an 11% tax. Already. That's do not go collect $200. That is, we don't see that. We don't even see that number.
Nope.
That number is just put into the system to share those funds.
Yes.
The only people who avoid that tax is law enforcement, military. And they have to, and it has to be like approved through a lot of different documentation.
It's a whole chain of events, and like the normal Glock or the normal Smith & Wesson, you don't see a normal gun come through and just go, oh yeah, we'll just take the tax off of that.
No.
So
No. Try doing that with the 6.5% tax that they just imposed here.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
No.
And on the federal side, there's accountability, and that money is derived from the Dingle Johnson Pittman Robertson side. Outside of the 11% is derived from the amount of licenses that are sold and the amount of people that live in a state, and every state gets their own cut out of that. But I think Colorado's somewhere between $36 and $40 million of their cut. But every state that sells licenses gets a cut back off of that federal excise tax.
So you get a cut based off of licenses?
License
then?
sales and
Okay.
population of the state.
Okay. So that's the two criteria that kind of help. So if we stop selling licenses, if we stop having people hunt in the state, we lose funding. And,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No matter how many firearms
Well,
are sold.
and I'll prove my point. Colorado Parks and Wildlife, when they turned around and went to the qualifying license side of things, they did that to be able to raise funds for, a $39 small game license or whatever. But they got credit because now they forced other people to turn around and buy these licenses, which then went in for the pot of the federal excise tax.
Have you seen that number?
I've seen multiple numbers.
So I can't remember who it was. They put out a little blurb on it. It was something like before tags were even allocated to people, it was like $28 million before a tag was assigned to anybody.
Wow.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And if you look at the way that all of this has played out over the course of the last 40, 50, 60 years, the people that we're talking about butting heads with or wringing each other's necks or whatever you want to call it, 90% of them don't pay into the system. No. Now, if they bought a firearm and they like to target shoot or for self-defense or whatever, they contribute to that just as any hunter does. But there's a significant amount of people that they don't contribute anything to any of it, and I think that's one of the crutches that people want to lean on. I pay my taxes. Well, good for you.
Right.
That doesn't go into the pot. It doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, when we get into these other conversations tonight, that you look at people's misconceptions, misinformation, uneducation, or their opinions or perspectives. Mm-hmm. I just want to talk about the facts when we get into the meetings. I just want to talk about the data. I want to talk about the numbers. I want to talk about the science.
Absolutely.
Do I care about your opinion?
Yeah.
Yeah. But should it make a difference on how legislators or commissioners or administrators should manage? No, it should not.
Because when that starts happening, then one side or the other side then gets kind of full control versus letting everything be dictated by facts, science, data.
Yeah.
Period.
We'd have a lot less slop. We'd have a lot less pork fat if we just relied on the data, relied on the facts.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and testimony would be a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You think of running a business, your business, running our business, like looking at how efficient can you possibly be? It's like, okay, well, look at the numbers. Like, I've got to make the most out of my trip. Like you've got this week, you're on a road trip, you're making visits. Mm-hmm. You luckily stopped in our neck of the woods. We look at numbers of like, do we need to buy XYZ based off of, what we did last year or even the last week to be able to survive? That creates an efficiency, that creates a look back at data. And it's something you can, like, I can't refute that. He can't refute it. You can't refute it. It's like, that makes sense. Like, let's use that data. Let's move forward with it. You can't inject your emotion and, your objection because of a feel-good pattern that you want out of this. And like our first question was like, should wildlife be managed by science?
100%.
Or based off of what polls better? Like how do the polls get pushed because of emotion?
Well, and getting people to understand how our wildlife is managed and has been managed and why it needs to be managed that way is probably part of the biggest troubles or feats that we have to turn around and try to crack that shell. Because if people don't understand why we have what we have, how do they know what's best for the resource or the wildlife or the water or the habitat or whatever it is? And I find it comical almost to some degree that even when you get the point proven, certain individuals, certain organizations, certain parts of the community still want to argue, and because it really gets down to, they don't give a rat's ass about the facts.
Yeah,
they give a rat's ass about their facts. They don't want your facts.
Right.
They don't want the truth, because as I've said, and I think I said it on Bobby's podcast this last week, they want zero.
Zero take.
Yeah, if you say, okay, we're taking unlimited, how about we take 1,000? How about you take less? What's less? Well, I don't know. How about zero? Because they don't have a number, because then they're conceding that one number is necessary. And I've never, ever had them concede in any way, shape, or form. You shouldn't do this. You should stop it. And if you look at the petitions that we're going to talk about, this is the same thing that I've been jacking with for the last 20 years, is they agree to compromise and negotiate. But what they really want is to compromise and negotiate to half of what they have. And then the next time they come back, they compromise and negotiate to half of what that is, which is actually a quarter of what you had.
Right.
And then the next time it's 12.5% of what you had, and then it's 6.25%. And after about 15 years, you don't have anything left because their number keeps going down to zero.
It's that long, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile conversation. I think we're seeing it on all sides right now. It's literally, that's what it is.
Look at the gun stuff you guys are dealing with.
Yeah.
Look at the rodenticide that I just dealt with last week.
Huh.
I mean, you got people that they don't want you to poison rats and mice or use glue boards. And then, but they started out, get rid of it all, And now they figured out they can't do that, so they go half a back and they turn around and say, how about these amendments? Nope. Okay, what about these amendments? Nope. How about this amendment? We aren't even going to get rid of this and this and this. We're just going to restrict who can use it. But they start at the top, hoping that whatever they throw against the wall is going to stick well enough to where the legislators and the other people are going to go, oh, yeah, we better do that.
Yeah.
Look at 003.
Yeah.
60 plus amendments
Yeah.
from its original, which is still being figured out.
Yeah.
It's still being
But they're going to have it worked out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're going to have it
Might
worked
be a
out.
bottleneck for a year or so, but
Yeah. I want to make sure that we include 2 videos that are going to be, I think, relevant. That I think, were you part of the Swift Fox one, or is that was?
I was on the periphery of that on the backside. We
Okay.
were part of the Pine Martin one.
Okay.
And I helped implement the Bobcat study underneath originally Director Broshot.
Okay, so we got 3 videos.
3
that.
videos.
So we'll make sure and put links. The Pine Martin video, and then the Swift Fox relocation, because we have one of the largest Swift Fox in the state, relocated to Montana.
In the country. In the country. I mean, we got a very healthy Swift Fox population. Swift Fox live on the eastern plains. The Kit Fox lives on the western side, and they say that they're extinct, although I've had people that say that they've seen them. Scientifically, they haven't been documented, so you can't say.
Right.
Just like people saw wolves for years, and people saw wolverines for years, and
Sasquatch.
Sasquatch. I was going to say, people saw Bigfoot until the science says so.
I'm right here.
You know, but the Swift Fox, where they did their studying on the eastern plains and the northeastern part of the state. I think the Pawnee and the Comanche National Grasslands, and a lot of those fox, because of the abundant population, were then shipped to Fort Belknap, Montana, as a cost sharing reintroduction program.
What do we get in trade?
I don't really know what we got in trade. Goodwill, maybe. I don't know.
The
maybe trying to
videos
trade
are-
for wolves. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a joke. We didn't trade for Swift Fox for wolves.
What I really wanted to get at is if somebody was interested, or if you know somebody that might be curious of what science goes into it, I think those 2 videos that I mentioned, and I haven't watched the Bobcat one, is a little bit longer, but very well put together, shows you the science, the effort that they go through for the Pine Martin, study, and then the translocation of.
Pretty comprehensive.
It really brings it all together, really well put together. I cannot believe the cinematography of a short video. And so the Pine Martin was in 21.
21, I believe. Yeah.
Finally available, getting pushed out. It's really great put together. So we'll make sure and leave links in there so you can share, watch it. It's just, I think it's really a way to visualize the effort that goes into the science that helps us, Colorado make decisions.
And that was significantly supported by the Colorado Trappers and Predator Hunters Association, and because we have championed trying to collect more data. But harvest is part of that data. And if you're just going to collect more data about what you have and nobody's going to be able to participate in it, there's no opportunity, there's no management, there's no offtake, then do you really need more data? Unless it's just for the sake of studying something to see if you got more data.
Yeah.
And I think getting people to understand that the North American model and the data that goes along into that is necessary, but it's imperative to have the ideologies of individuals that are willing to turn around and say, we need some of this because of maybe some of the social science components, because of habitat degradation, because of the urban-rural divide. We need more of this. But if you don't have harvest, do you really need any of that? And our enemies, my enemies, your enemies, would say we shouldn't be harvesting any of it because they want to go to rewilding as opposed to relocation. And I think there's such a crossroads of different spectrums of people's perspectives.
Yeah.
That I made this joke, and sometimes it falls on deaf ears, but try to get an atheist to go to church. I've never seen one, and I'm not a churchgoer, but I've talked to people, and I'm like, you ever seen an atheist in church? And they're like, no. I mean, I think a lot of what I believe in, the people don't believe that we should be doing any of it for any reason. And I think that we should be doing it. I don't think we should do it to where we extirpate things. I don't think we should do it to where we cause extinction. I don't think we are in a spot with regulated harvest of abundant resources that we'll ever get to that. But sportsmen and women are the front line of that.
Yeah.
Because of the money, because of the need, and the anecdotal experience that sportsmen provide to the science side of things, to where they could say, we took this many deer, or we did this many sheep, or this is what our sage grouse was, or this is what we're doing with swift fox. If you don't have that component out there, there's an entire thing that's taken off that you can't even start to codify at any level. We get down a rabbit hole.
I just get this. Oh no, I just got this weird picture in my mind of nobody in the woods during hunting seasons. When you said that,
Yeah.
Well, look at some of the testimony you've heard. Eminent domain. We need to turn around and buy this. If they're not willing to sell it to us, we need to buy it for market value, and then we need to turn around and kick all the farms and the ranches and all the people off, and we need to turn it into wildlife sanctuaries. That's been public display of, and you got one side of the room, which it's weird because they always sit on the left, and then when we go in the room, we mostly sit on the right. And it's almost like we are automatically divided.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking at the people, they're not on the left or the right. But when you walk in, it's like I'm going to the left and I'm going to the right. But if you look at the way that this thing has played out over the course of time, they believe that you and I should not be here to turn around and take advantage of the renewable resource that we consider so vital. They believe that we should not be part of the consumptive chain and we shouldn't be part of the ecosystem. I believe we are a major part of the ecosystem.
I mean,
Big.
just the population growth alone in Colorado says that we need to be a part of the management piece.
Yeah.
Just that alone.
I remember as a kid that you could literally, and I did this when I was going to the Western National Stock Show at 16 years old. You could stop, and I had permission to hunt for anybody that was saying, you're a poacher.
Yeah.
You could stop on I-25, get out, get down to the fence, and shoot a coyote. You can't stop on I-25 now.
Yeah.
But to see a coyote or to see a deer or an elk, now they did the big game crossing, the wildlife crossing across Interstate 25, but it's a completely different setup, and that's supposed to be the open space between Denver, Castle Rock, and Colorado Springs. You used to be able to turn around and drive for miles and hardly ever not see wildlife. Tell me, when you drive across the state now, how often you see wildlife compared to what you used to. It's there, but it's gotten away from the people.
Mm-hmm. That was like that conversation when we were riding in your truck, going by 39 Mile Mountain, and you were telling me about how when you would pull into the park 30 years ago, and you might see one person
all day,
and we went out on, I think it was like a Thursday, maybe a Friday, I don't know. They all run into
it. Was a Monday.
It was a day.
It was a Monday.
It was a Monday.
You remember, because he came back and told you.
Yeah, all day.
All day.
It was a Monday.
I believe what we did.
But
This is so cool.
On a Monday, we saw several people.
Yeah.
I mean, several people.
And when you look across the plain,
Yeah.
it's house upon tire structure, upon bus, upon camper, upon tough shed, upon nice house, upon buried house, upon tents, and upon
which is a conversation that needs to be had over there. Is they need to have a discussion about some of the stuff that's out there is awful. I mean, there's no way that is okay for the environment.
No. And that just gets ignored.
Yeah.
The enforcement on a lot of this stuff is detrimental. The lack of enforcement is detrimental to wildlife and our water and our habitat and migratory corridors and a variety of things. I mean, it's that sector up there is becoming more and more like what I call the Bermuda Triangle, going down 285 and 17, where you turn around and got the gun barrel, and it's a different landscape.
Yeah, and then, like, I understand that people got to live and do their own thing, but at the same time, I look at it and I go, man,
You got to be stewards.
you look at that and you just go, that's just not good for the future, right?
No.
Like, you look at that, because a lot of that stuff, I don't know. I feel like it's sometimes I see it out here, especially in the summertime. Broken down RVs, that type of thing, left on, on national forest land, BLM land, because they can. You look at that stuff and it's just trash everywhere, and you're just like, I'm the guy that's like hiking on wherever, and I see like a balloon or something like that, and I'll
pick it up.
I don't step
Leave it
over
better
stuff,
than you found it.
Yeah.
But
it, like that, I don't know. That was a very enlightening trip for me to where it's come from and now where it's at.
And I, being an old graying guy that has done this for so long at so many different levels, and seeing the change. Look, I know that change happens, and people always say, "Well, change is good." Well, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But don't expect me to like the change that you want me to change. Don't expect me to sit idle while you're trying to change my buddy or my rancher who's 85 years old that's been doing this since he was 7. Don't expect me to turn around and like what you're trying to get public land access or restrict public land access. Just because you say it's that way, I don't believe that those things have been scientifically proven enough. When I've been on the landscape for 62 years and I've been doing this for the last 50 years, and somebody comes up and said, well, in the last 12 years, the weather has changed to this degree. And I'm like, well, you didn't see it 40 years before that. And if you look at what the East Coast is going through right now and have to deal, we have change on a variety of different levels.
Yeah.
But the problem is, and you started the conversation out, so I'm going to try to circle this back.
Perfect.
Because I see what sort of a ringleader you are already. This is not my podcast. This is a Slide a Gunshot podcast. But
With Dan.
Yeah, with Dan. We have an opportunity to attempt to try to hold the line on so many different levels that when somebody moves from Illinois to Colorado and has been here 4 years and says you need to do it like this, you can kiss my ass. When somebody turns around and comes from Florida and says, you should do this in your county because this is what we did back home. And we're seeing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But the kicker is, the reason I bring that to the center is because that's what people are doing with our wildlife and our natural resources and our water and our recreation. They never have anything bad to do with it, but they criticize everybody else for what they do with it. And those are things that need to be pointed out to where people are held accountable in some regard, because I'm not saying that everybody's wrong.
Right.
But listen to the Catalina Island deal where Charles interviewed that gal and she says, well, I've been doing this for 4 years. You can't pay a car off in 5, and now you're an expert on Catalina Island mule deer in 4.
I mean, it's an honest conversation of like, they're like stewards of the land, right? Ranches that have been in multiple generations, right? Some of those ranches, they're like, oh, in XYZ year, we had this snowfall that was this, and this. And, oh, we did have some elk that died, or, some mule deer or whatever. And this is what happened, and this is where they went. Or they have like, oh man, the last time we saw it this dry was XYZ, but then we had these like incredible spring and summer monsoons, and you're talking several generations of knowledge versus a blip.
Yep.
It's a blink of an eye. Your life on this planet, in the scope of the planet itself, is a blink of an eye. And when somebody says, whether it's the weather guy or whether it's a climate scientist or whatever, what we did, well, they other people do that about wildlife. but they don't know what we had compared to what we have, and they don't know what it was before that. I mean, you look at the guys that were the big time hunters in the 50s and 60s in the state of Colorado, just as an example. And the mule deer were, I've got more documentation, just like what we talked about, that the state hunting office used to be in the Capitol. That's where they actually turn around and try to promote people to come to the state of Colorado. And they would actually give people, you buy a license, you got a license, because our wildlife was so populated. I mean, you could kill 2 deer. You could kill 2 elk when they got to a certain point. In the 50s and 60s, based upon the human population that we had with 1 million people, we had a plethora of wildlife. And we did have a lot. You talk to the old guys, they were like, we saw herds of bucks with 50, 30-inch bucks in them. When I was a kid and I guided on the Nash Ranch that I was telling you about, and when we grew up, that's where Gordon Eastman and those guys went and filmed a bunch of their stuff. That was a 5-day deer season, one 5-day deer season in the entire year. That was it. And all the does were in there. Well, now it's been subdivided and busted up to 35 and 150-acre tracts, but all the does were in there. And every buck within 35 miles would pile into that thing. And I remember as a kid, you would sit there and you would watch. Literally, I got VHS videos, the old Gordon Eastman type videos of 20 and 30-inch bucks in a 5-day period on a 10,000-acre ranch.
Is that what they call a cassette?
Right.
I think it is. I know I can't play them unless I turn around and send them to some digital copy deal now. But we had that. But people that have never seen that don't understand what we had, and they never saw the houses, they never saw the development, they never saw, and I won't even get into the agriculture side, because there's properties that I've seen that were just so undergrazed that they became weed infested and they became fire tinder boxes, that when cattle then came in and sheep came in different parts of the state, they became more palatable, and then the deer and elk started to move back in because the cattle and the sheep weren't there all year, but they grazed it down enough. Just like mowing your grass.
Yeah.
You mow your grass, it gets healthier as long as you water it and take care of it. Our people that we have, for the most part, don't understand the cyclical side of what it takes to steward our natural resources. And wildlife is particularly vulnerable. And I think the fragility of that whole side of things is beyond the scope of people's concerns. And why? Because when somebody goes out and sees a deer or an elk or a bighorn sheep, and they saw it, they're going to tell everybody. Just like Shane Mahoney said, when they go out, they're going to tell that experience. But the majority of people don't turn around and go back to try to do it again. It's a haphazard deal. It's just like, it just happened. They didn't really seek it. They weren't wildlife watching. They just saw it. But it's important to them. But do they really care about what happens when they're not seeing it? Yeah. Sportsmen and women, agriculture producers, care about what it does in between when they're going to see it. The average person doesn't. And it's not so much that they don't care. It's just that they don't see it, so they don't pay attention to it. And that's that old adage, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. And I think that's one of our biggest problems when it comes to what we're dealing with, is you're dealing with people that don't live and don't breathe and don't eat and don't sleep and don't drink the wildlife side of it. Yeah, they care about it. But they also we proved in 127 that they care about wildlife being managed by experts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Leave it up to the experts.
Actually, makes me think of like some of the customers that come in the summertime sometimes. Where are the elk? Where are the elk? Where are they at? And where I live, I mean, there's usually quite a few elk just around the area. Usually, oh, I saw them this morning. They're over here. Oh, we saw them. Then come back in or whatever, and it's like, yes, and those are there. Yeah. Because of what's going on here.
Oh yeah,
that's it just is.
They think that they see these videos or they see things about Evergreen or Estes Park or Yellowstone, and they think that because they saw some houses or some buildings or some parking lots and people walking on trails or whatever, that they think that that's the way it is all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, they just take it for granted because they're not around it enough, and to them, it's a unique experience. They love to see it. But I guarantee you, when they go back home, they're not planning on the next place that they go to turn around and watch wildlife. They're going to for the experience. And if elk and deer and sheep happen to be part of that, fantastic. Yeah. Well, that's why, was it Punch the Monkey now? Have you seen?
Yeah, I did see that.
My wife's addicted to Punch.
He's a cute little guy.
Yeah, it's like, you should watch Punch the Monkey.
He likes his stuffed animal because he was an orphan, right?
He was an orphan. Then he was raised by people.
And
at the zoo.
At the zoo, they gave him a stuffed monkey.
Like his adopted parent.
Yeah. And then none of the other monkeys liked him and would force him away and abuse him.
Yeah.
Was wording that was used. And just recently, one of the other monkeys hugged him and invited him in. It's all over.
Meet the little monkey who made the whole internet cry. His name is Punch. He was abandoned by his mom right after birth, so his caretakers stepped in and gave him something small but powerful, a stuffed monkey. It was the closest thing he had to a mom. He slept with it, played with it, and whenever he felt scared, he held it tight like it was his whole world.
It feels like me going to the Capitol. I feel like I'm abused, and then finally some people took me in, and they turned.
Should we get you like a stuffed elk or something?
Give me like
coyote,
stuffed Bigfoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be compassionate about wildlife. The hard truth is some feel-good policies increase suffering just out of sight. Urban voters mean well, rural communities pay the price. Dan, where have you seen intention and outcome collide the hardest in Colorado?
People's intentions are based upon their opinions. And sometimes their opinions are based upon perspectives that they see. Opinions, I believe they hear. Perspectives, I believe they see. And I think they make a rash, hard judgment on so many different things that they're uneducated about. I don't care if it's a legislator. I don't care if it's a commissioner. I don't care if it's an administrator. I don't care if it's, I referenced this, and then I got hit up by the donut guy. I said, I don't care if it's a donut guy. He goes, hey, I'm a donut guy. I'm like, okay, sorry about the donut guy. But I think that people as a whole have good intentions. And just like what I said earlier about my opposition is no less passionate about what I'm passionate about. But it's kind of hard to be educated in a manner to where you could be passionate for the cause of stewardship as opposed to your cause of emotional, I won't say disorder, but sometimes they become disorderly because they're trying to get their emotion across. Intentions are often good. Sometimes they're bad. But the result always comes back to, okay, what do you want to happen? And then how do we make that happen? And the science is what drives it. I mean, the facts, the data, whether it's money, whether it's compilation of information, whether it's 30 years as a scientist watching boreal toads and swift fox. I think that people take it for granted, especially in today's environment, that what they intend to do is not what they normally follow through with. And I'm going to use an example. How many people have New Year's resolutions? That's an intention.
It's a good one, yeah.
How many people follow through with that? Not very damn many, according to the gyms.
The facts and data show that it's not.
Exactly.
I mean, they got year memberships, but they really only used 18 days. And I think that we see that on our side from a wildlife consumptive use side, that I'm going to do this and I'm going to get engaged. But I think we also see it from what our opposition side is, to where their intentions are good, but they become tainted and misguided because maybe there's other people that have less admirable intentions or less factual intentions, and they don't really care about the end result except for go back to zero. So much of what we talk about is going to go back to zero. It doesn't matter. They don't want you to harvest it. They don't want you to kill it. They don't want you to use it. They don't want you to be stewards of it, and they don't want you to codify it commercially. And to them, if you really get down to it, like what we're talking about, this fur ban petition, they're talking about the commercialization. But they are criticizing the game agencies for selling licenses because that's commercialization. They're criticizing the outfitters for taking people because that's commercialization for trophy hunting. It doesn't matter what their intent is. Their whole resolve is stop it. And I think that people need to understand that when you talk about intentions, how do you define intentions to where it's positive for what you both sides are passionate about? I want stuff to where Sydney and her kids can turn around and grow up and watch it. You want to pursue it? Fine. You don't want to pursue it? Fine. But don't criticize the people that turn around and made it possible so you can pursue it. But I think that those are the things when you can have a conversation with people and say, why do you feel like that? What draws you to that conclusion? How do you get to that perspective to where I'm wrong and you're right?
I feel like listening to you, it is the elitist of most elite thought processes to think that you can remove this way of life to get to not you,
right,
but the folks that want to go to zero. I feel like don't understand that there are people still out there very much so subsistence hunting, and we hear it a lot.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know anybody that doesn't enjoy their game.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't know anybody that, whether that's enjoying it from a donation standpoint, enjoying it from, hey, this is going to feed my kids and keep them healthy for the next, year. Enjoying it as a family.
Yeah.
Friends. It kind of gets me a little bit that they think that removing this will remove these people.
That's why Marlon Reese said food is political. Because they want to make it political to turn around and drive people away from it because people don't like politics.
Right.
Well, I'll say that's the main reason why we're holding hunter safety classes here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've gotten to a point to where we've allowed government entities and agencies and ideologies and perspectives to set the tone and narrative for so much of what we engage in. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to fix something because somebody else broke it. Everybody's going to turn around and not create a tax, but they're going to create a fee. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to turn around and create restrictions or prohibitions because there's been too much excess. But when you really look at it, when you get into the wildlife side and look at what we're trying to do from a habitat conservation side, yeah, we have less than what we had, but because we keep breeding like rats,
yeah,
and unless we're going to stop that process, there's no way, shape, or form that you can fit more people and more wildlife into the same space when they talk about rewilding, unless they're really talking about maybe depopulating to some degree. And I'm not saying that's a tinfoil hat theory, but rewilding in that tone and that narrative has to have some sort of a break-even point to where you're not going to populate anymore. And if you're going to take people off the landscape and have eminent domain and turn it back to the wildlife, you want more people to go into the cities as not to supply for themselves and not to supply a food source to the general public. So what do you want? Mm-hmm. I've sat down with many, many people from my adversaries. And I think if we didn't start the conversation out civilly, it could get very contentious and very heated. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple individuals, and if they ever listen to these type of podcasts, they'll remember those conversations that we had where they started out, what do you want? And I said, no, wait a minute. Tell me about you. Who are you? Where'd you come from? And then I'll tell you about me. Because we're still freaking people. We still have to eat. We still put our pants on one leg at a time. Well, most of us do. We have to figure out a way to work through what we're talking about. But don't chastise me, criticize me, and put your beliefs into my freaking life, because I'm not trying to do it from you to you. I don't give a rat's ass what you do. But they always want to stop what we do, what I do, how we do it, when we do it, where we do it, with whom we do it, whatever expense it is. You have those conversations and you bring a level of civility and decorum and a caring. Because I want to ask people that turn around and watch this sort of stuff, if you saw one of your biggest adversaries broke down on the side of the road in a blizzard because they hit a deer, would you turn around and drive off? Or would you have compassion to be able to turn around and stop and help them?
Why would you not? Like, why would you not?
Well, I guarantee that the people that hate me and do what they do to me in my life, they'll drive past me.
Yeah.
That's a different ideology.
Those are the same. Well, they drive past everybody.
You know, yeah,
They don't, you know.
they might report you for hitting the deer. You know, it's like
That's the same person that reports the wildlife sign saying, "Why did they put a crossing here?"
yeah. It's
Put it 20 meters farther. So
exactly. Yeah.
So you touched on conservation and rewilding. Rewilding would be preservation, hands off, even when it gets worse. You know, whether population control on the human side element or on predator side, or even just absolute chaos when it comes to deer. Like you look at the town deer that we have here, like there needs to be some sort of conservation so that it doesn't get out of control. It doesn't become a problem for those that are human and living in that space. I mean, we're looking at 6 million people in the state of Colorado.
Yep.
And it goes back to what you said earlier, is like we have to be part of the solution in order to continue to still live in the state. Otherwise, with a hands-off preservation, rewilding, it's only going to get worse. You're going to have more vehicles hit more animals. You're going to have, less likelihood of people wanting to come to the state because there's too much interaction. I wouldn't say interaction with animals, but the possibility of being, I would say, I don't even know how you would word this. I got to start over. Gosh. Would there be less people coming into the state if we weren't part of conservation, because the rewilding is out of control, the preservation is out of control?
Well, and you talk about preservation versus conservation, and I remember going down to Delaplane, Arkansas, when I was like 19 years old, and I had an uncle and an aunt down there. They were farmers, and they were beet farmers and cotton farmers. And we went down, and he had an old pickup. He had 3 channels on his television, and we would always ask after we got done working, Uncle Ray, can we watch television? And it was either Lawrence Welk or like Hee Haw. And we would say, can we change the channel? He said, you wanted to watch the damn television, sit and watch the television. So you had 3 channels. You didn't have 3,700 channels like what we do now.
Right.
But I remember him saying, when my Aunt Jane would say, you can't have that. She had jarred mason jars in the cupboard and some down in the basement. You can't have that. Well, why not? Because that's my preserves. And he says, well, they should be conserves. I remember him vividly, and I didn't know what conservation was. He said they should be conserves because we should be able to turn around and utilize them. But preserves means that you're sitting there and letting them sit on the shelf. He said some of that stuff has been in there 2 or 3 years, and she said it's still good. He said, well, who the hell's going to eat it then? and I think that as I grow up looking at, okay, if you're not going to conserve it, maybe it's preserves, and who's going to hell to eat it? Who's going to utilize it? Who's going to value it? Who's going to turn around and put the effort and the time and the money and the resources in? I said this at the Alaska Wildlife Project podcast that I did in Reno at the Sheep Show in January. I don't know why. Just if you look back and watch that thing, it turned out pretty good. But I said something to the effect of, our adversaries will not put their money where their mouth is. And I won about $4,000 on a slot machine out there, and I had a lot of $100 bills in my pocket. And I took that $100 bills and I put it on the table, and I said, when you go to a meeting and you turn around and ask them, what are you going to put into it? Here's my cut. I'm going to leave it on the table when you guys turn around and figure out what you're going to do. They won't. They don't. Because they believe in preserving, not conserving. And preserving, you only have to do that once, and you put it on a shelf and leave it. Just like the gentleman that was at the Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting last year about the rewilding deal, about the eminent domain deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Put it on a shelf. Don't let anybody touch it. Nobody gets to see it. You don't get to recreate. You don't get to camp. You don't get to hike. You don't get to bike. You don't get to snowshoe. You don't get to hunt. You don't get to run cattle. No logging, no oil and gas extraction, no conservation, no utilization of natural resources, period. Just we need to do this. And if you can find that clip, it would be good to be able to put it on there because we have it if you need it. But to show the lunacy of some people that they want to put the entire planet first. I believe that we should be first and be stewards of the entire planet, because I want to still be here and I want us to be able to live prosperous and take care of it. But to put the planet first and the rest of us on the back burner?
What is that concept?
Stupidity.
No, there's a concept.
Like plant the tree that you're.
No, it's like anti-human.
Rewilding.
Rewilding.
It's 100% rewilding.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but they use another name for it.
If you're looking to explore your opportunities to hunt out west, maybe try Colorado. If you're trying to get information about bighorn sheep, elk, deer, private land, public land, maybe it's everything that you want to do as far as pack-in trips. Maybe it's just having a pack trip decided for you, and then when you get there, you just hunt out of a drop camp. Make sure you check out the Colorado Outfitters Association. Colorado Outfitters Association here in the state of Colorado has got a numerous amount of outfitters that are members, and they can supply you with whatever you're looking to try to acquire and what you want to do for the hunt of a lifetime. For more information, check out the coloradooutfitters.org and make sure that you let them know that you heard about them with Through the Gates, and let them know that you're trying to continue to save the hunt in the state of Colorado. We always talk about supporting businesses that support our efforts to be able to save the hunt in Colorado. Well, the Colorado Shed Company in Penrose, Colorado, just outside Canyon City, is one of those partners. Colorado Shed has been building sheds in the state of Colorado for the last 10 years and is actually owned by sportsmen and women. They support the efforts of what the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management has done, and they also support all the organizations that you're probably a member of. Whether you're looking for small modular type buildings, sheds for your property to store the extra hunting equipment, or maybe just to turn around and put that freezer in for all the meat that you've got, check out Colorado Sheds. They also do pole barns and can do custom manufacturing to whatever your heart desires. She sheds, man caves, it doesn't matter. Check out coloradosheds.com.
When you guys go to the meeting tomorrow, March 4th, for me anyway, I don't know when it is for you, but when you go to that meeting, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You spend 8 hours in that atmosphere and then spend 8 hours the next day with a completely different set of sideboards, because you're going to have 003 and wolves, and the first day you're going to have fur bearers and snakes, and it's probably the most contentious agenda I've seen out of a Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting in the last 20 years. And we had wolves and we had mountain lions. We had a bunch of stuff, but not like this, not just solid. Yeah. I mean, this is back to back to back to back. I think people will get to a point to where they feel empowered by stepping out of line. Mm-hmm. They feel empowered by making a scene. They feel empowered by creating some sort of diversionary tactics that draw attention to them, because their cause is bigger, better, meaner, faster, stronger than the facts, than the data, than the science.
Yeah.
And I really believe that when you start to see it in smaller circles like this, that it expands out and they become more empowering, and then somebody else sees it and then they become empowered. Mm-hmm. You know, that Senate Bill 062 that we did on the rodenticide, you saw some of that with some people that were there, how they wanted to stare down with specific senators, with how they wanted to turn around and throw their hands up and make a scene in front of the committee. Not only is it unprofessional, they don't really care about the people or the process. And while I will be the first to say there's a lot of people in the Senate and the House of Representatives and in the administration that I don't care for, I will always respect the office. Do I respect the people themselves? No, because of what they do or how they carry themselves, but I'll always respect the office. And when I talk to somebody, and this is how I think that this translates into what you were saying, when is enough, I say yes, sir, and no, sir, and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and I say senator and representative, and I say governor, and I say treasurer, and I say secretary of state, because that's the position that they have. It's a level of influence and authority that they were elected by their peers. And I don't care if it's county commissioner or a wildlife commissioner, I still greet them with that greeting. You watch how many people at these meetings, they don't take their hat off, they have no respect, they interrupt, they don't wait to be spoken to. There's a process and a procedure and a protocol that we've started to lose. Now, granted, I'm 62. I believe in a lot of that stuff. Other people that have been born that are 28, maybe they weren't brought up that way. They need to have the crap slapped out of them as far as I'm concerned. But there has to be a level of decorum, civility, and respect before you can respect yourself and what you want, you have to understand to be able to respect other people. Now, just because I harvest things and I kill some things, and my intent is to kill some things, even though I'm sometimes very unsuccessful, my adversaries want to turn around and chastise me for what I'm attempting to do, just like what we're seeing in society, where society is attempting to do things to affect other people's livelihoods and way of life and the way they live. And I think that when you're going to find a breaking point, I don't know what that means, but I think you're going to find a breaking point to where people say, okay, hands off, enough is enough.
Right.
We need to do it this way.
That kind of conversation of wanting people to move to the cities, or like creating that avenue of forcing people to the cities,
Oh, yeah.
is really interesting because there's a lot of people out here that just want to be left alone. And there's people further than this that really want to be left alone.
They're finding a harder and harder time to be able to do that. There's one individual, and I won't name him by name, but you saw him at our rendezvous last year, and that individual is a
He lives rent free in the back of my mind.
yeah, yeah. That's not a bad way to live.
No.
Because he helps us from a volunteer standpoint because he believes in the cause, but he doesn't believe in staying in the lines. And the reason he doesn't is because he sees the tumultuous landscape that's been created by this growing giant locust patch that just eats everything in its path and doesn't give a rat's ass about any of it. And I think society has become that locust patch. You know, they just devour it, get rid of it, don't worry about it. When you come back to it, if it grows some more, you eat it some more. But if it's not, you just keep moving along. And he has seen that. And I think that there's individuals out there that are like that. Not as frequent as maybe what they used to be.
Right.
But we have to have some sort of sideboards for laws, rules, and regulations because of the amount of people that we have on the landscape.
Yeah.
Do we want everybody driving 120 mile an hour through the canyon? Well, I don't want to drive it. Do we want everybody smoking weed while they're turning around and freaking riding motorbikes and flying airplanes? I don't want to do that. Do we want everybody to turn around and teach specific things in schools to specific kids for specific reasons? I'm glad my kid's full grown. Do we want rats and mice running all over the flipping landscape because we ban rodenticides and glue boards? I don't think that most people would want that. We have to figure out where that even balance is of what do you want, what are you willing to sacrifice, and what are you willing to keep? And I think that those are things that people as a whole are going to figure out a way to do that. The problem is that wildlife and our natural resources belong to every single person in this state. And that's what the task is for this agency to be able to manage, just as it is in all 50 states. Manage the wildlife with what tools you have.
They get attacked like it's people's job.
Oh, yeah.
Like CPW, like they're getting dealt, I'd say, a quarter deck right now.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to deal with it. They are not the ones creating these issues or wanting to manage these issues or anything of that sort. And unfortunately, I feel like it's, because of how political it's gotten, it's driving really good people away from that agency.
Oh, yeah.
But there's still really good people in that agency and are doing a great job in providing us facts and data. But man, some of the stuff that they're dealt right now from legislators and stuff like that is just like, holy cow.
And you and I and everybody that talks positively about Colorado Parks and Wildlife will get criticized by a fair amount of individuals that don't understand the internal workings, don't understand the food is political side. Well, the wildlife side has become even more political. Yeah. They don't understand that.
They don't have friends there. They don't talk to anybody there. They listen to 5 shorts and a reel, and then they post a comment.
That's why you got rid of social media.
Way off base. Way off base of what is actually occurring or what's going on. And I feel really, honestly, for some of the folks that are in just the heat of it, you feel pretty bad for those people. Because they just want, I mean, honestly, if you talk to most of them on a one-on-one level, most of them, they got into that because they wanted to protect the wildlife, because they wanted to take care of the landscape, because they wanted to catch the poachers and that type of stuff. They don't want to deal in guns. They don't want to deal in managing a pet project. They just want to go out there, take care of the animals, get the data, send it off, everybody's happy, put on some hunter safety courses, live with their family in a beautiful landscape.
Yep.
There's a lot of people out there that don't understand that.
There again, because of my age and me growing up in a taxidermy shop and me spending time with game wardens and me spending time with field people, and of course the agency was a lot smaller then and there was a lot less people in the state of Colorado. But those people, for the most part, were career-minded individuals that when they got out of college and they became a game warden or a biologist, by God, they were going to ride for the brand and stick with that damn thing for 30 or 40 years, which we've seen now some of those transition out.
Yeah.
My understanding is the commission meeting tomorrow, there will be a recognition for a 52-year veteran. He's in his 70s, but he's been there for 52 years. You will not see that in our life again. You will not see 40 years. You'll be likely not to see 30 years.
The last 7 years have been rough.
Oh, it's been absolutely phenomenal, the amount of people that have jumped ship, and they didn't retire. They quit, moved, and went to another agency somewhere else. So they might have stayed in the state system, and now they're working in the prison system, or they went to the Department of Transportation, or Department of Health, or whatever it might be. Maybe it's Department of Ag. Because of the para system, the retirement system. They got 23 years in, but I can't stay in this.
Yeah.
They got in for the cause of wildlife and natural resources and management and the stewardship. Now they're starting to realize that they become people managers more than wildlife managers. And what I saw from the time that I was a kid, that a lot of those people that were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that had kids, their kids would then turn around and get in and be the next game warden. I've got game wardens in my area just like that. But what you're seeing outside of that is you talk to the new kids with the dads and moms that have 15 or 20 years, and those kids are like, I am not doing that. I am not stepping into that. And so there's other people to fill that gap, but those people don't have the background and they don't have the tradition and the heritage. Hell, some of them that are going through their in-service training stuff and becoming recruits, they've not even had hunting licenses, for Christ's sake. Now they're going to be a game warden. They've never been into a hunting camp. They've never turned around and fished. But this is a job. It's not a career.
Yeah.
It's a job. And you'll see what my fear is, that 20 or 30 years from now, I'll be dead and gone by then, but 20 or 30 years from now, you're going to see the turnover in agencies like this throughout North America. Canada's got the same issues, that you're going to see people get in for a job and not a career. And once they find out that the wildlife side is political, just like what we were talking about, food being political, they don't like politics, so they don't stick with it, so they find something else. And maybe that's in the private sector. Maybe that's in some other form of public sector. But that's a travesty for our wildlife resources, because it's really hard to say you have a wildlife manager that's only been in an agency for 7 years, and the average deer lifespan is 8.5. He didn't even get to go through one lifespan of a deer to turn around and decide what the deer was going to be on a 5-year big game season structure. And they go back to that, you can't pay your vehicle off in 5. How do you expect to solve or make anything better as this cyclical side of wildlife just becomes this job and not a career?
The respect will be gone.
Yep.
The respect for the wildlife will be gone.
So there's definitely a pattern, and it's we're seeing it start to come up in guns. We have the rules piling on. CPW being part of 003. We've got bills introduced to restrict the purchase of components, parts and pieces, barrels. The creation or use of 3D printed material, all the way to the point where the possession of CAD that could be used would be punishable. Why do we constantly see you give them an inch, they take a mile? We've got 3-day wait, administrative burden on us, a restriction. Start over. We've got the 3-day wait. We've got a delay in your right for that firearm. We've got now the 003 that's being pushed forward, being head by CPW to come up with a training schedule and a system that works with multiple agencies, CBI, Sheriff's Department, third party would be background check, trainers, FFLs, all having access to the same piece that's still not created. Why are we seeing this seep from guns to wildlife constantly? 200 bills a year, on in Congress, in the state. Like, why? What's the core of those things just piling on administratively? Rules, reduction in rights. Why? Is it the zero?
I think it's a zero. I think it's it's a combination of you could say the Second Amendment side of rewilding is disarming, and I there again, I'm a firearms aficionado, and for those that don't know, I had a federal firearms license with our store and our business for 31 years, and I surrendered that last year because I will not go through that sort of tyrannical bullshit. I wasn't making our living off of it. But it used to be,
yeah. But
we transferred firearms through auctions and estate sales and raffles and through conservation organizations and so forth. But in the early days, we were a gun store and we had a trading post. And I think that what I've seen go through every single part of my life, whether it's the pesticide application and the wildlife control, or whether it's the trapping and the hunting, the consumptive use, the guiding, the outfitting, the firearm side of it. Hey, I thought it was a cool profession to get in and make your living somewhat off the land, but at the same time being able to survive and be self-subsistent to some degree. Mm-hmm. I think that's the dumbest thing I probably ever did when I was staying in Colorado, because every single thing that I do is under attack. They want to take it away. Who the hell thought that I couldn't buy a gun barrel, but now they want me not to buy a glue board, and now you won't be able to sell a beaver, but you're going to have legal prostitution? You just look at the change in mentality of society, mm-hmm. and how they've indoctrinated things to their particular liking. Elections have consequences. And I think that when you give an inch, they will take a mile, and if they get the mile, they will take, a dozen miles. And I believe that we're in a point now to where, going back to that first part of the conversation, enough is enough. And it has to be something to where people start to feel that themselves. And I believe that they saw some of that on 127 and 308.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we have to continually go back and recollect that, because that was the city and county of Denver, and it was the entire state on mountain lands. And that was 4 years after the wolf deal, and everybody said, you guys are screwed. I think people started to say, enough is enough. They didn't realize what segments of enough was, or how it was going to affect them, or what they were going to have to, cost them, or fees incurred, or restrictions and so forth. But you look at I don't care what you look at, there's additional restrictions and prohibitions and cost-related issues in the last 8 years. And if you want to turn around and look at the government oversight of it, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, for example, which is the subject of what a lot of our discussion is.
Yeah.
250 new full-time employees in the last 8 years.
Oh, my gosh.
250. They've grown full-time employees by 25%.
Holy cow.
Why?
They're scaling the business.
Who in the hell could do that and not see significant growth?
Yeah.
But there's not growth. There's more mandates, and there's more restrictions, and there's more prohibitions. And it's not CPW doing it. It's the government creating it. Now they want to turn around and use the Outdoor Opportunities Act and let CPW manage all the state's recreation. Well, that passed out of committee yesterday. I think that we should probably curtail outdoor recreation to some degree. Do I want tourism or do I want Colorado Parks and Wildlife managing that? I'm not sure. But I know that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has not been able to manage the stuff that they've been mandated to do. 003, wolves, you turn around through all the other endangered species. Now we got 7,500 and some odd insects that they got to turn around and manage because of the pollinator bill. You look at the things that they've had to deal with that they didn't say, hey, we need to do this. This administration and this General Assembly said, we want them to do this. It's hard to get rid of government once you already have government because government grows like that locust patch.
Yeah.
Why is it always? What is the end goal of putting it all on CPW?
Because they're a type 1 enterprise agency, and they're supposed to be on their own. They're supposed to be able to make the decisions on their own, but they can't. And they damn sure can't when their unfunded mandates are given to them. Listen to the conversations for the Joint Budget Committee and how that money's distributed and where they're going to get it and where they're going to cut back. And I would encourage people that watch this podcast to go back and watch commission meetings, which nobody will, because that's about the most boring flipping thing you could possibly come up with, unless there's some really good sound bites that we can collect and we can kick out there. Nobody wants to go back and watch 12 hours of a commission meeting and watch people argue back and forth about what they know or what they don't know. But people have to pay attention enough to see that elections have consequences. The people that are in office in the state of Colorado that then make the appointments of those commissions and those boards, and then the other people that help turn around and fund this because of the nepotism, and they're related to this person, and that person is in their back pocket over here. They go home together. They got different last names. Nobody knows that they're married, and they're actually sharing bedrooms or whatever,
right,
until somebody brings it to their attention. People have to realize what government has become, and this is just Colorado. You look at what Washington and Oregon and California, and look at what the feds are doing and how this just molds into this giant diabolical deal where we talk about your rights and how we're going to take them away. We talk about your privileges and how we're going to restrict them. We talk about the good old days and how we're going to make it better, but in reality, you just turn around and make it worse.
Right.
I think, to your question, that we've created such a divisive community and culture to where they get power and they get benefit off of creating division between sectors of the general public. And when you got people, going back to that statement, that food is political, what, are we going to have to vote on that now? You start voting on food?
Right.
I mean, is that where we're going? Because they want us to vote on everything else, but they don't want to give us the power to do it, because if we make the wrong decision, they want to turn around and make it right. Perfect example. Ordinance 308, fur ban. Was shot down 17 points in the city and county of Denver. Why is the commission hearing that? Why is the commission hearing that so that a body of 10 can turn around and circumvent the will of the people? It was fine when 1.8% voted to have wolves, and everybody said the will of the people. The will of the people. You got to support the will of the people. Okay, now we win something by 17 points. Yeah, but your will of the people doesn't count. It's our will of the people. That's why we have to let 10 people decide. But those 10 people were appointed by this governor who doesn't want it to start with.
Yeah.
That's very similar.
Connecting the dots.
Very similar to Tom Sullivan's statement that the violent crime and everything's decreasing in Colorado. And I just was like, where are you getting your numbers? Everybody has a phone.
Yeah.
You can literally look it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it always comes back to your data set doesn't matter.
Right.
Your factual data doesn't matter. The science doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we want. That's what that is.
Go back and reference the 3 videos that you referenced, the Pine Martin video.
Mm-hmm.
The only Pine Marten study in video that was done in the state of Colorado. But if you listen to the fur bearer working group or stakeholder group that I sat on, and you listen to the results, that 87-page document, and now you listen to what they're doing in the petitions and what they want to turn around and try to do for recommendations, the Antis, the Center for Biological Diversity, Project Coyote, Cats Aren't Trophies, Wild Earth Guardians, Humane World for Animals, you name it. Go back and let them watch the video and then let them argue the points that they don't want to argue in the video. They say there's not enough, you shouldn't be able to do this, you can't utilize it, we don't know how many there is. We had a study here. You don't want to acknowledge that study because that would turn around and disprove what you've been alleging, what you've been insinuating.
All of it.
Look at the stuff that we've done on the federal side, the regional side, the state side, the local side, and there's always somebody that's going to want to try to discredit it, but they never bring anything besides their peer-reviewed science. It's not broadly peer-reviewed.
Right.
It's our peer-reviewed science. Well, I think you guys would agree that if there was a definitive gun problem that you believed that you would stand behind to turn around and try to make it better, would you restrict it? Maybe. Would you prohibit it? Maybe. I don't know. But you would try to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
The people that we're talking to, they don't want to make it better. They just want to get rid of it. It goes back to that original deal, zero.
I think the lack of understanding of how many firearms are in circulation, though, they just don't understand that that's not a thing.
It's like trying to ban tennis shoes.
Yeah, it's not happening.
I mean, it's not going to happen.
It's not happening.
You might be able to ban socks because people throw those away pretty regularly. Man, you can't ban tennis shoes. I mean, it's the hypocrisy and the hyperbole that we see at so many different levels, and we can sit and criticize it, but we're the ones in the courtrooms. Mm-hmm. We're the ones in the commission meetings. We're the ones at the Capitol. We're the ones that are fighting tooth and nail to keep things off the ballot. Do I believe wildlife management should be done by ballot initiative? Hell no.
No.
But if it's going to be done by ballot initiative, I want to make sure that when everything ballot initiative comes up wildlife, that you adhere to the will of the people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. I don't think any of it should be ballot initiative. But by God, you can't turn around and cherry pick and say, oh, this was the ballot initiative that we supported that barely won. So you have to listen to that. Yeah, that ballot initiative over there, that's a moot point because that's 10 times the amount of our ballot initiative's victory. That doesn't count. Do you ever think that we'd end up voting on the right to carry and bear arms? The right to vote and carry and bear arms?
Right.
And if we did, and the voters chose for the right to carry and bear arms, do you think the other side would turn around and accept that vote?
They'd find another way.
They'd find another way.
Yeah. So what do you believe would be, if you felt overwhelmed, uncertain, what would be the most effective way for you to act at this point if you believed in conservation, the will of the people? What would be, if you could put it simply and eloquently, what would be the simplest single act that you could do?
Well, and I know this starts to fall on deaf ears because of me being on so many podcasts, and I think I said it with you guys when we did the podcast earlier last year. Mm-hmm. It's just get engaged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't count, especially when you don't vote.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't tell me your vote doesn't count when you can't tell me. And I chewed your butt earlier. You know, who'd you vote for? Mm-hmm. For what? Tell me. Give me a name. You know, what Senate district do you live in? You know, do you remember any person that you voted for and what district you voted in, and if you paid attention to where if they've done a good job or not? Because who in their right mind would want to hire somebody and then never check up on them to see what they do? Your hairstylist? I bet you turn around and check. Your dog groomer? Bet you turn around and check. Your gunsmith? Bet you turn around and check. Your politician? Oh, no, they just must be doing a good enough job up there that we don't have to flip and worry about it. Right. Not to mention the fact that look how many people are appointed that we didn't get to elect. Mm-hmm. And look at the vacancy committees in the legislature where you got almost a third of the entire General Assembly that was chosen by some group that nobody really knows who that group is, and that's filling the vacancy spots. You got a third of the entire General Assembly that might be Democrat, might be Republican, might be independent, but they didn't run for office.
Right.
And then when they go to rerun because they were appointed the first time, now they're incumbents. So it looks like they've been there. So they must have been doing the right thing. No, I think that our biggest problem is people take it for granted that whoever is sitting there is going to do the right thing, and then all they do is bitch about them doing the wrong thing, but they don't try to hold them accountable for doing the right thing.
I think it goes to the individual, myself, being accountable for that vote. Putting a little effort into, was that an incumbent appointed? Was that something, did they help push through something that I strongly disagree with or strongly agree with? And being accountable myself first, then following through with making sure that they are accountable.
I think, the easiest way to shut people up online or in person is when they start to complain about something and say, you just ask, who did you vote for? 99% of them can't tell you.
No.
They can't tell you who's in office right now. Who's your senator? It's that guy. Mm-hmm. I know it's on the tip of my tongue. What district are you in? 55? I mean, no.
Yeah.
I mean, if your kid went to school and came back with those sort of answers, you'd turn around and say, okay, you're not learning anything in school.
Yeah.
I think we need to hold adults accountable
Yep.
on so many different things.
The number of hunters not voting.
That's a problem.
Yep.
But not just the number of hunters, the number of people. Mm-hmm. And if you look at what we've done the last several elections, there's a significant amount of the population that just takes it. The legitimate registered voters that don't vote. People that aren't registered are a bigger part of the problem. But the legitimate registered voters that just don't take the time to be able to do it. That's a travesty. And I don't care whether you're independent, Republican, or Democrat. You've heard Greg Lopez and Jason Mikesell and Victor Marks and Michael Bennett all talk about the registered voters. 50% of the state of Colorado is independent or unaffiliated. 23% is Republican and 27% are Democrats. You got to get a hell of a lot of the independent or unaffiliated over here to go one side or the other. But the pendulum is going to swing back and forth enough at one point in time. It's just that when do you get into play? Do you only do it on a presidential election? Do you only do it on a gubernatorial election? Do you care about your senators? Do you care about your treasurers and secretaries of state? Do you care about the attorney general? It's amazing to me that we've allowed, and Colorado has become synonymous with this, but we've allowed people to get into an attorney general spot and then become governor. We've allowed people to turn around and get into the secretary of state spot and then become attorney general. These are some qualified people to be able to turn around and do stuff for 4 years and become such an expert they can jump fields and go into something else.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like, oh, well, I'm a veterinarian, but I'm going to be a brain surgeon. And next time, I'm going to be a bomb detonation technician because that's what I want to do. You can't do that in real life. You have to have a lot of training, a lot of background, a lot of experience. And just because you sat in what I consider to be a marginal, if not questionable, government position, I don't think you're qualified to turn around and step into those other spots. And those people are then making recommendations for appointments of unqualified, unelected individuals to sit on commissions and boards that then have a significant amount of power. Our problem with our community is sportsmen and women, they don't understand the process. And they want to criticize Colorado Parks and Wildlife for what they do. And really, Monday or Tuesday or whenever the hell it is, they'll start applying for licenses and looking at preference points and seeing how many hunt codes and where you can draw and how many licenses and what you can do and other special seasons and all the stuff, what you can do or what you can't do. They'll pay more attention to that than what we will talk about when it comes to commission meetings and legislative bills and hearings that are coming up, and it's all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's easier and it's more rewarding to turn around and say, if I don't draw this, I get second choice for this. Oh, look what I did in Arizona. My buddy got this leftover tag. At the same time, at the State House, people are voting on bills to take things away from us while these guys are worried about where they're going.
Yep.
That's a travesty.
It is. Just pay attention. Vote.
Get engaged.
Get engaged.
I'd say for somebody that has that sort of mentality, why does he hunt? Because he's not successful every year.
Yeah.
He's not successful every day. He buys a license. He turns around and applies. He has his gun. He goes and sights it in. He does his scouting, or maybe he doesn't. He buys new shoes. He turns around and goes to, to get new binoculars. He goes out in the field. How many times has he actually brought something home that he can put in the freezer and say, I hang my hat on that hook and I'm successful? Politics is not an even keel deal to where you're going to get a 50% success.
It's fair chase.
Yeah, it's definitely fair chase, And
Not
and
one and done.
And you get outsmarted a lot because you don't understand your pursuit. You don't understand the quarry. And I think that people that say it does no good, it's an easy way out.
You quit.
They just, yeah. Success rate for elk hunters in the state of Colorado is 9%, straight across the board. 91% of the people pay for the privilege to be able to go out and do it. But you only get a 9% success rate. That's straight across the board. That's cows and bulls and guided and unguided, private and public, and late season, early season, and muzzleloading and archery and rifle. That's straight across the board. Luke Weedle said this in one of our first commercials we did for the campaign. Can you imagine going to the grocery store and only being successful 9% of the time? Well, we are allowing our politicians to be successful 100% of the time because we never turn around and put a barrier up. We never turn around and vote somebody else in. We don't turn around and take a stand. Republicans are just as guilty as anybody, but independents are just as guilty, and Democrats are just as guilty. Look, we're sitting here talking about politics. Do you know Democrats that are friends that you like?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
So why do we keep saying about Republicans and Democrats? How about we all turn around and get together and we turn around and try to pick the best person as opposed to the best person for me or the best person for you, and he voted for this one, so you're a bad bastard, and I shouldn't turn around and help you? It goes back into this whole concept of, are we doing it for the greater good, or are we doing it because of what we want? As long as you don't take my stuff away, and I don't want to take your stuff away, should we be talking about our stuff?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a perfect example is what to tell that guy in an answer and say, then why do you comment? Why do you engage? Why don't you show up? Why don't you participate? Ask him again, okay, if you didn't vote, who are you mad at that is in there? Because he doesn't know that person either. He's never had that contact. He's never had that engagement. And I think that those are things that, there again, you got to call a spade a spade. You got to hold people accountable for things. If you saw somebody shooting off the side of the road and poached a big bull elk and then turn around and drove off, would you turn him in?
Me?
Yeah,
I have.
Yeah. He looks me. Yeah. I wasn't accusing you. I was like,
At least get on the other side of the.
Yeah. So why don't we do that with politicians? Why don't we turn?
Yeah.
It's accountability, and it's hard. You have to participate. You have to engage.
Yes.
But I have a job. I work 9 to 5 and I raise 4 kids.
So you got vacation time. You got what's important to you. If they were turning around and teaching your kids specific things at school, would you go there? You take time off of work to do that.
I think that's proven by how many people are homeschooling their kids.
I mean, somebody died. Would you go to the funeral? Somebody gets married. Would you turn around and go to the wedding? Somebody calls you from jail because they had some sort of incident. Would you go bail them out? We all have the same amount of time in a day. This isn't criticism. It's just we all have 24 hours in a day. It's what we determine that is important to us. And when I get people that have slapped us on the back over the course of the last 5 years and say, man, thanks a bunch for what you guys are doing. That's really badass. Well, I'm not doing it for you because you didn't show up. I'm doing it because I believe it's right, and I believe it's the needed thing to do. It's mandatory to do. It's cool to get slapped on the back and a little bit of praise, but I always ask, where were you?
I feel like in the shop specifically, we're constantly getting the what can I do? What can I be a part of? What's next? Like, what's the next thing that I can be a part of? And I think we're gaining ground, not necessarily like in our podcast, but in the collective messaging of you've got to be involved. You have to be accountable for this moving forward, or you're going to lose everything.
School board.
Yeah.
kids sports, local 4-H, what's going on in the hunting world, what's going on in the agency or commission, what's going on locally, regionally. Like you said, you have to. I told somebody the other day, I said, turns out I get an extra 12 hours a day. I don't live on a 24-hour. 36 hours. Mm-hmm. I get 36 hours every day. Mm-hmm. That's what I get.
Mm-hmm. That's what it turns out to be.
Yeah.
One thing that I've suggested before, and sometimes it's worked. The legislative session in the state of Colorado goes for 4 months, 120-day session. There's some states that go every other year. There's some states that go for 60 days, which I'd love to live in those states because 4 months is a long time. But the politicians are politicians for a year, the entire year, for 2 to 4 year terms. Mm-hmm. So if you don't want to go to the Capitol and you don't have time and you can't take off of work and it's too far and you don't like Denver and there's so many excuses you can make for a variety of things, the person that represents you lives in your district. So make a phone call and get 3 or 4 of your buddies together or business people that know that individual and know that he's an actual elected official, and just make the phone call and say, there's 6 of us in this auto parts circle that we've got, or this car dealer parts, or maybe it's gun dealers. We'd like to sit down and have a conversation with you. There's 6 of us, and we're your constituents, and we're business owners. Mm-hmm. We provide X amount of economic benefit to our county or our district. This is how many employees we have. We would like to have a conversation with you. How many times have you or 3 of your buddies invited a politician into your store and said, we need to sit down and have a talk because you're my politician? Yeah. Because I'm asking you the flip side is you can go to the Capitol and do that. Mm-hmm. You can walk up there to the Sergeant of Arms, and when you're in the Senate chamber or the House chamber, and you can give him your business card, and you can say, I want to talk to my legislator, whatever district it is. I want to talk to my legislator. Now, if they're sitting there voting, they're not likely to come out. But more often than not, they will come out. They'll turn around and do a brief introduction, say, meet me in my office, or they'll give you a recommendation on how you can get together with them. But if you invite them into your territory, into your business, into your coalition, your homeowners association, your hunting group, whatever it is, now they're there in your circle as opposed to you in an uncomfortable circle that you had to turn around and go to the Gold Dome.
Yeah.
There's tools available for us to be able to utilize. Same with the commissioners. By the time that this airs, this would have already been gone. But commissioners, on February 27th, Jay Touchton had a open house at 6060 Broadway, 2 to 4 o'clock. Not a convenient time. It's in Denver. Who the hell wants to do that? But the people that we had sent there had a chance to be able to talk to him because they can't talk to him on a hot mic when he's in the meeting. You can only address them for a minute, but he's got 2 hours there. How many people take advantage of that ability to interact with those individuals? If the governor turned around and called you and say, Josiah, Adam, I'd like to sit down and have a conversation with you. Would you go?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you think if 30 different businesses from a particular region reached out to their legislator, that the guy would take him up on it?
You would hope so.
I'd hope, yeah.
You think 30 sportsmen that have issues on landowner preference points or license allocations turn around and called the director of CPW and said, we'd like to have a conversation? These are the things that are available to us that we just don't take advantage of because we act like they sit on a pedestal somewhere in some faraway land, like the Wizard of Oz. You don't have to ask permission. You can ask for engagement. And I think that we as a community have not taken full advantage of that. And you talked about when do people say enough is enough? I think when they get down and destitute and they don't know what to do and they just throw their hands up and they say, I'm not going to do it anymore. If I would have felt that way, we would have lost everything that we've been fighting for in 2007 when I first started getting engaged. And we haven't lost anything of any significance. We didn't fight wolves. I want to clarify that. I keep saying that. We didn't fight the gun stuff. We were fighting all the wildlife-related stuff. We went through the transition of Parks and Wildlife. I was appointed by Director Davis. I was appointed by Director Prinslow. I was appointed by Director Broscheid. I was appointed by Director Cables. I was appointed by Governor Polis. I was appointed by Governor Hickenlooper. Not because I wanted to, and it gave me a seat at the table, just like the damn back of my hat says, if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. Mm-hmm. And I think the majority of the people, are complacent with the mediocrity of sitting there and waiting to be on the menu. I'm not.
How do we make it easier for people to engage?
It's so easy right now. It's so foreign to them.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to the Capitol, don't go to the Capitol. You can write a letter. You can turn around and make a phone call. I mean, unless these people that we're talking about don't have emails and don't have phones.
I know some people like that.
Well, yeah, but we'll talk about
know
him
him
later.
too.
Yeah, he'll be at the meeting.
But he's going to show up.
Yeah, he's going to show up. And you know what? Here's the deal. I want to emphasize. So he won't listen to this because he doesn't know how to do podcasts. So I can turn around and criticize him, but I won't call him by name. I have to send the directions to the hotel to his brother so he can print them off and he can give them to Mike. Whoops, I said Mike. This is the Mike, so I'm sorry. Yeah.
Beep.
So he can turn around and follow the directions because he can't find where he needs to go because he's got a flip phone. He doesn't know about GPS. He can't use the GPS. He writes in cursive letters to the commission, and now they won't take handwritten letters because you got to turn around and email it.
But he's one of the largest land stewards in the state.
Yes.
That's our conversation with Dan Gates. If you felt the weight of the discussion, it's because these decisions are heavy. They are important. They affect real animals, real land, and real people who care. It's uncomfortable. Dan keeps showing up. When the rooms are quiet, when it's unpopular, when it would be a lot easier to just not. That matters way more than most people realize. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much to both of you. And I would hope that these type of conversations, if 1,000 people listen to them and 10 get involved, that's a success. And I would hope that as we continually build these conversations, to get people engaged and get them to understand the severity of the situation, the volatility of the landscape, whether it's guns, whether it's agriculture, whether it's natural resources, whether it's mineral extraction, whether it's wildlife, whether it's water consumption or water preservation and conservation. People understand that you can't take it for granted and you can't expect it to do it on its own. And it doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
So thanks a bunch to both of you. And I know that we're going to have you over to our studio since you liked it so much. And once I get the wires all hooked up and figure out what I'm doing. So appreciate it to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.